There we go. You unmuted me and then I promptly muted myself and then was stuck on that. Let's get started. If you have questions, feel free to interrupt me and I'll be answering them as we go. So this is a little bit about zero waste strategic planning. We'll be talking about zero waste and plastic free because ultimately we want to move towards zero waste, not just free of plastic waste. So I work for the Postlandflow Action Network. We're a 7-year-old nonprofit with the average age of 24. We're all recent graduates from universities and colleges that have special projects that we worked on in college that give us the knowledge to help students with similar projects right now. We work on not only the plastic initiatives, but also on help implementing compost, becoming an entirely zero waste campus. We help with move out programs and more. You can check it out on our website, which was, I think, at the beginning. So we work with over 400 campuses in our network right now in 42 states. And then occasionally we work abroad with some folks in Canada, Japan, Ireland, Australia, and Brazil. But mostly we are a US-based organization. We work on a membership status. So right now of those 400 folks, about 1/4 of them pay a membership fee every year. The membership fee is $500 a year. But we never turn a campus away for lack of resources. So some of them get membership for completely free. In addition to, or for being a member, you get one-on-one advising from any one of our staff members who are experts in different projects on college campuses. We also have a plethora of manuals on our website, which you'll see linked there, including a free and thrift manual, waste audit manual, and our plastic-free campus manual, which is free in an English version and a Spanish version. And then we additionally have some discounts with partners. So we have an extensive way we work through and make sure that the businesses that we partner with are up to our moral standards. And then the ones that we choose to partner with offer us a discount code. And you can get awesome products like Diva cups, reusable cups, and other types of things for either yourself, or if you want to run and get something for like your club, you can do that as well. So specifically what I work on at Plan is the Break Free from Plastic Campus Pledge. There's a link to the website there that will take you to the pledge, but this is a pledge that we developed in 2018 after we saw a lot of colleges eliminate straws and maybe bottles from their campus, and then they were declaring themselves plastic free. But we all know that becoming plastic free is so much more than that. There are plastic clamshells, plastic utensils, among a bunch of other stuff. So this was our response to a holistic way to eliminate plastic in all the ways that we know that you need to based on our experience with college bureaucracy. These are the 4 steps of the pledge, and I'm going to walk through them. So the first step is to implement a zero waste task force. And the reason for this step is that if we don't have all the stakeholders in the same room, we were going to have holes in our system. So if you think about how, let's say, a plastic water bottle will travel throughout campus, it is purchased by the purchasing department, and then it's distributed to dining or housing, and that'll give it to a student or a faculty or a staff, and that student will either put it in the trash or they'll litter it. If it goes to the trash, that'll be facilities or a recycling bin, I guess. Facilities, if it goes to if it's littered, it'll go to grounds. And then sometimes facilities is even broken into 2 different departments, and then it can be taken to a different department from that. So all of those different folks on the campus need to be involved in the process of developing this pledge specific to your campus, because if they're not, there's going to be a hole in the system. If everyone's not on the same page, it's not going to be an effective pledge. The second one is identify and eliminate the easy disposables, or something that we call the low-hanging fruit. These can be customized based on your region. So there are alternatives to certain plastics in certain areas where there are not alternatives to other ones. So this is where you would list what you know there an alternative is, where you know their alternatives are right now. So that's stuff like a reusable coffee mug and a reusable water bottle, the reusable utensils, all of that stuff that has a easy alternative and needs to be eliminated from the campus. The third part is establishing a process for a long-term switch, which includes policies for the vendors that you contract with. So most campuses get their food on campus through Pepsi or Coke, and then also through a food contractor. As long as those contracts that are made with those folks don't include a plastic policy, they will continue bringing plastic onto campus. So our solution there is some policy language that we have many examples of that you can include on those contracts that will prevent them from bringing plastic onto campus. The fourth step is the system switch, where we make sure waste is going where it needs to go. So when we're switching away from these easy disposables, folks usually go one of two directions. You can either use single-use compostables or you will go the reusable route. We prefer the reusable route. It is the more sustainable option, but a lot of schools will still go with the single-use compostable systems. But if that is the case, they need to make sure that they have an industrial composter where they can take the amount of waste that they are creating. In certain states in the US, that's not possible, such as in Oregon. The industrial composters will not take single-use compost containers. So those folks would need to go to a reusable system. If you're going to the reusable system, you need to make sure that you have staffing to wash those containers, dishwashers to make sure that they are sanitary among the containers themselves. So none of these switches will be completely easy, but these are the steps that need to be taken to essentially eliminate plastic. Recently, going off of that dishwasher and keeping things sanitary, we've been doing a little bit of research on COVID-19, how it will affect college campuses and their reuse systems. We have linked there our Reusables and Sanitation Toolkit. That is a living document, and it will be added to as we hear back, but it is the basics of how to make sure that your reusable system, if you have one, can stay sanitary. A lot of folks switch to single-use plastic thinking that it was safer, but in both situations with single-use plastic and with reusables, it's how you are using them that is going to make the difference, not the material itself. So if you're interested in reading that, please just click on that link. So for overall zero waste strategic planning, we have been thinking about this for a while, and we've been wondering, how do we measure, benchmark, and track our progress towards zero waste? Because as of right now, there is not a lot of great benchmarking to figure out how to create the standard for zero waste. And so in response to that, we have been identifying material management scopes. So the scopes are the types of waste that you experience. So generally that's either like soft goods, which are things like food waste and the stuff that an individual user would consume and throw away. And then the other scope is things like construction and demolition when you're building a building. And so we need to identify the types of waste that we are creating. The next part is creating a materials management system map to figure out how waste is moving in your current system, and then also vision how you see waste in the future moving through the system. So this includes including all those steps that I talked about earlier, with the individual user taking it to facilities, taking it to, say that would go to landfill, but if in a reusable system, that would go from student to dishwasher back to student. And then in the end, we need to strategically vision as the group, which is similar to the Zero Waste Task Force, how we are going to move forward. So we did a little bit of research to see how folks were currently measuring zero waste, because a lot of schools said that they were going to be zero waste by 2020 or 2030, and we weren't seeing them hitting the same marks that they were saying that they would. A lot of them were traditionally measuring zero waste by the diversion metric, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is flawed later. But basically, after this research, we figured out that the problems that folks were running into was using the diversion metric, the fact that they didn't have standardization, and then the fact that management wasn't getting through the right chains, and folks were not hearing and being a part of the conversations that they needed to be a part of. So diversion does not measure zero waste. So there's a blog there that you can read about, but a simple scenario that I like to use here is that when I was in college, we had really high diversion. So I should explain what diversion is first. Diversion is the amount of waste that you are diverting from the landfill. So it's the amount of waste that you are putting in compost or recycle as opposed to putting it in the landfill. But even in that example, you can hear that it doesn't actually measure any means of reuse that is going on. And so the reusable systems that these schools may be taking aren't taken into account when they are determining their diversion metric. Additionally, so when I was in school, we had high diversion metrics at all of our events, but that was because of how much food we ended up giving to compost, even though it should have been eaten. So this was food that was perfectly good, but because it wasn't eaten during the event, it ended up going to compost. Compost is very heavy, waterlogged, so that weight was bigger than the landfill waste, even though really that food, we wish it would have been eaten, not thrown away or composted. So it's normally referred to as 90% diversion from landfill and incineration, but that is something that we are trying to shift zero waste away from. So this is the zero waste hierarchy. It's developed by the Energy Justice Network, as you can see. And diversion would be the two yellow ones on this list. And when you think about where we want to be up here at the top with rethink, redesign, reuse, reduce, none of that can be measured by diversion right now. And so you're still following under and aiming for these things that are closer to the unacceptable side of things. And then this is an easy example to look at. So in 2017 versus 2018, this school, as you can see, the first year they made 500 tons of both landfill and compost. In 2018, they reduced the amount to landfill, but also reduced the amount to recycling and compost. So their diversion metric is actually going to be worse in 2018, even though overall they reduced all of their waste. So diversion can't measure that. So the second problem that we saw among schools was that they needed standardization. And we like to use the phrase plan that infrastructure change has to precede behavior change. So if folks are confused by the waste system on your campus, it is less likely that they're going to be inspired to put things in the right bin to make sure that they are not messing up the system that you have created. So our suggestions for this are to increase observability of what can be composted, what can't, what can be recycled, and what can't, and make sure that all of the bins are the same in each of the locations. If folks are confused why one place the recycling bin is green and the other space the recycling bin is blue and the compost is green, they're not going to know where to put their things. Eliminate excuses is showing folks the examples of the things that need to be in each of the bins. So sometimes that even means including an example of, say, the single-use compostables that will go in the compost bin. And then being very clear about your expectations that your school is heading for zero waste and that we need everybody on board to get to that goal. So this is an example of a standardized bin at UC Berkeley that they have in all of their locations. Not only is it very clear, but it eliminates excuses because it shows you exactly what goes in each bin. And then the goal, which is communicating clearly what you want, is UC Berkeley zero waste by 2020, and that is right there on the bin. So it's getting everybody on the same page. So the last issue that we saw that needed a solution for is campus management and the bureaucracy of a university. So this is a basic outline of how some universities will operate in the US. And you can see how many different departments are under different things. And it's hard for them to communicate because they have to go up and over to communicate. So it's really essential to identify key stakeholders in this system and make sure that you have everybody that's going to be a part of this process. So this is an example. So you'll see that Director of Athletics and Facilities Management have been circled. So in this scenario, the campus moved to campus-wide composting, but athletics is under a different division. And so they aren't doing composting yet. And composting is going fine on the campus, but now athletics wants to include composting at their events. Because of how this system is so siloed, the actual implementation of getting compost at athletics and who will pay for that and who will manage it can get so complex that folks just stop and it doesn't happen. So we have to make sure that there are clear communication pathways for these folks. So the overall takeaway from this is that campus-wide zero waste needs a systems approach, and we have to move beyond just waste audits and waste characterization studies. We need to make sure that all campus stakeholders are on the same page, and also make sure that the system is moving in one clear direction that is communicated clearly. So that, in response to those three problems, Plan did the Atlas project, which is a consulting service for universities to use to get back a report that is a recommendation for how to move forward with their zero waste goals. And we like to call it a holistic framework for measuring waste reduction. Stage one is the interviewing of campus stakeholders. So at that map back there, that would be interviewing of a lot of the people on that list to see what their knowledge is of the waste system. Do they know that we have an e-waste recycling? Do they know what goes in the recycling bin, to see where the gaps in knowledge are? Stage two is including all of those stakeholders in a visioning to see how we want to move forward, and Plan assists with both of these steps. So the summary recommendations from all of this: make sure you explore the reuse and sanitation toolkit, especially right now when we're talking about how we will be going back to campus and continue to use our reusables. Consider mapping out your campus system for waste right now. So where does it come from? Where does it end up? And where you want it to look like in the future. Develop that list of campus stakeholders. You can find examples of those maps online of all the different departments, and make sure that you are aware of all the folks that will need to be a part of the process. And then also engage in strategic visioning with all those campus stakeholders. Make sure that everyone is on the same page and is striving for the same goal. So if you're interested in doing this Atlas program, you can go to that website, but we're also doing a fellowship this summer, which puts the interviewing happens from a student, which is a really great way for a student to get involved on your campus. So if you have a student intern and you're looking for some more stuff for them to do this summer, you should definitely check it out. The program is just 5 hours a week, and they will get a stage run report, which gives them a recommendation towards moving towards zero waste. If you have any questions, you can email info@postlandflow.org. Also, alex@postlandflow.org. That is the one of our co-directors, or check out the website. I can also take like small questions in the chat if you want them. But I do more of the break free from plastic and less of the Atlas. So I will probably direct you to Alex.
Thanks, Yang, for giving us an overview of Atlas and how you assess campuses with Plan. So later, Yang will be available for questions during our question and answer part. But for now, you will move on to Mr. Jan Djikstra. Hold on. I'm going to introduce. So Jan was born deep into the previous millennium during the revolts of May 1968. This may have been part of the inspiration for his recently found activism. He is trained as a civil engineer specializing in water management, but he retrained to become a math teacher in '97. So as an educator and father of two, he recognized the need for a framework in which youth could address their worries about the environment through positive action. That motivated him to step down as a head of department and become sustainability coordinator in the International School of Geneva in 2013. His biggest achievements have been the inauguration of the Ecru, the elimination of single-use plastics on campus, almost 100% in 2018, and receiving Eco School accreditation for this work in 2019. And the journey to achieving this is now also available in www.plasticfreecampus.org, which is a platform where Jan has developed all these modules for everyone to see how their journey started and how they developed this journey all throughout in his school. So Jan, feel free to share your screen and start.
Excellent, thank you very much. This should be my screen, I think. Press that. Can you all see this? I'm new to Zoom, so we use Google Meets, but I think you should probably see this.
Yes, we're seeing it.
Okay, great. So it's 10:30 at night here, so forgive me if I'm a little bit frazzled here. It's the end of a long week, but I'm delighted to be here and to relate our story, right? It's not just my story, but our story, which will give you the perspective from, which is slightly different from Young. Can I just salute Young and her work and the proficiency that she provides. There's a lot of echoes in what I say here, but I'm really impressed by what she's achieving at Berkeley. I'm really impressed by how we are like an ecosystem of different activists of different generations. I would like to hope that we get a sense of being intergenerational here and seeing that we are collaborating on this. So this is just me, just to give you a bit of background. So I'm just middle-aged activist with my wife and two children here. And my son graduating motivation, right? I trained as a civil engineer, which gives me background in water management and awareness of the of what is going on in the world and how we are in a precarious situation. As a math teacher, you sometimes lose track of that, but as a father and seeing my students struggle with some of the challenges, that's motivated me to go a different route. So what that journey was exactly, I will share some of that with you today, right? For me, really, it was a leap. I can't say it was a really premeditated step to try this out. It was more of a sense that I had to do it. There was a strong sense that in 2013, this was pre the whole thing on plastics, it was pre climate change really coming to the forefront, but there was this sense that I didn't want my own children or my students to look at me and say, where were you when all this was going down? So I really reevaluated my role as an educator, as a parent, I suppose, and asking the questions, okay, how do we do this, right? How do I choose the best way forward? And sort of sharing my questions with others, I found a way forward. And I would say that the principal thing is to really stick very close to the mission. I think there are some administrators in the audience tonight, and I think for me, the most pivotal thing to sort of sway my leaders, the International School of Geneva, for your information, is 8 schools across 3 campuses, so it's quite complex. We have around 4,500 students and about 1,000 staff, so it's not easy. And I'm talking about 1 campus and 2 schools at this moment in time. But we all have the same mission, right? And missions in general have something to do with, working towards a better future. And I took this picture during a recent IB conference because we're an IB school, and the IB mission really refers to a better world, right? And for me, the question is, holding a plastic bottle in my hand, is this really the way forward? So sometimes questions become really tangible. And I basically wrote a little piece that I shared with the leadership of the school and say, I don't believe that this is serving our mission. And at that time, we had vending machines on our campuses that sold plastic water bottles. And I said, this has to go. So it's really a realization, and this is quite profound, that seeing we all have a mission and we all have something that we truly believe in, but then we also have to be willing to really query it deeply and say, is this truly what we're doing? If not, we run the risk of being hypocrites, right? And I think as educators, we have to avoid that at all costs, because we really undermine what we're doing. Now, we might like to think that, the solutions are going to come from outside, that there's this great, right, super force coming from the outside that's going to solve the problems for us. But I'm a deep believer that actually we need small communities around the globe, right, that are intergenerational, that together are going to deal with the problems as they are. I really see that we all have to be part of this, right? I hear my students, I'm a high school teacher, so my students are really fed up with my generation saying, oh, you are the generation that has to fix things. I think we have to be extremely careful to put that burden on that generation. And I think it's completely wrong. I'm really against it. And I also think that it's a missed opportunity, because if there's one thing that I found from our journey, is that this builds community. And I'll come back to that later. But I think it's really important that sharing your problems will also share life and things in general. So what I'll share with you is a number of solutions that I found along the way, or things that we've started doing. And one thing is a commitment of our school to the long term. So here's an example of a water bottle that we gave our students last September, our new students coming into our secondary school. So our school system is a bit different than the US. Our students come in when they're 11 years old, and they stay in the secondary campus for 7 years. We are an international school, so our population moves around a little bit, but we give them this bottle, right, for the next 7 years, right? What you see here, the class of 2026, that would be their graduating class. So it's the idea that we're in it for the long haul. And I think this is a message that we give to our students, and I'd love to say that 11-year-olds are fabulous, at taking care of their bottles. Not all of them are, but many of them are. And I think it's appreciated as a gesture, right? None of what I'm going to suggest here is perfect, but I think they're all parts of the puzzle, right? Another part of the why for me as an educator, right, apart from what I saw, is, last September, about 20% of our school population went out on a climate strike, which was a big deal, right? Students went out on the streets in Geneva. And there was a fun part to it. I mean, a couple of thousand went out there in total, right? And 200, which is about 20% of our secondary population, joined them. And I think it was a way for young people to express, right? And here are some letters. I will share my presentation with the organizers so that you can read that. I'm not a great fan of a lot of text on the page here, but what we asked to do is the students who wanted to participate, we wanted to give them their motivation. Why do you want to join? And what is it that you have been doing already? Right? To sort of give an indication that it's not a sort of free ticket to miss school, right? To give a suggestion that you reflect a little bit. Okay, am I really passionate about this? How can I demonstrate this to others? Right? What is my credibility here? And I think it's actually quite important. So I've included a couple of letters here in this presentation that quite moved me, right? In the sense that I read almost 200 of them, and they give a sense that something has come across. For me, what I think is really important is that students are aware, right? Smartphones and easy access to information is all there. So young people know what's going on in the world. And if we educate as if everything is like it was 10 years ago, I think that would be completely wrong, right? I think it would be irresponsible. I think it's very important that within school environment, there's a possibility for young people, and I'm talking here 11 to 18-year-olds, which is a bit different than tertiary education, university education, where people are already there, right? These are young minds that are forming and shaping their understanding of the world, right? I have students who are 12, 13-year-olds who are passionate about changing things. And I think it's important that they get an opportunity and not to be told that they are too young to do this, because really, every person counts here, right? If we look at the larger sense of education, right, a lot of education is still, unfortunately, about compliance, conformity, and competition, right? We really had to move beyond that. And we have to allow young people to prototype and live the future now, right? And that's why I'm so encouraged by what Young has shared with us before and what I've seen in other places, that these possibilities are there, right? If we are intelligent and we're willing to think deeply and get our hands dirty, that are there. So this is for the educators out there. One of the difficulties is how do we frame this? How do we put this in place? Because there are so many frameworks that exist that we can say, okay, how do we embed this? How do we put this into our programs? And we have found our way that actually go beyond much of this, right? Because it's a bit of a maze, really, and I don't have enough time, and I don't have the will actually at this moment in time to drag you into that. But there's a lot of opinions and there's a lot of ideas of how we would go there, right? We are an IB school. You may be familiar with that or not, but I think every school system has some sort of core as to what they expect of their students, right? Of what they want them to take forward through their education. For us, there are certain parts here that are extremely important. I think principled is very important. I think reflective is really important. I think caring and balanced are really important, right? We are global citizens, right? One of the things that we are sharing with our students is Project Drawdown. You may all be aware of this. For me, this was a thing that I learned about a year and a half ago. It's really important to share the good news as well, right? There's a lot of I would say, alarming news in the world. It's important to say, okay, we can be systematic in what we do. We use Project Drawdown to look at how we address things at our school. I'm going to speak about plastics, but right, we also talk about food waste and plant-rich diets. Right, in our school, we have introduced more vegetarian meals. For instance, we have vegetarian days every week, which is helping. We're really looking into reducing food waste. We have a long way to go, but we're somewhere there. The Ecru that I'll mention in a moment supports 3 girls in Nepal through their schooling, right, which is part of educating girls, number 6 here in Project Drawdown. If you're not familiar with Project Drawdown, look them up. It's worth looking into. So essentially, I plunged, right? I think that's the long and the short of it. I was challenged by a colleague and an alumna from the school who said, Jan, we need to do something. And they came up with the idea of plastic, and they say, okay, how are we going to do this? And they say, well, April. They gave me basically 6 months, right, to make this thing happen. And I love them for it, because it's really opened a completely new domain of possibilities, right? So I was a sustainability coordinator. We would raise awareness. We would bring in speakers. We did some workshops, right? But it was all fairly gentle. The big thing was when we had to eliminate single-use plastic, I'd experienced that when I wanted to organize something, whenever there was an event, there was nobody around for some reason, right? People were always busy doing other stuff. So I had to create some sort of commitment. And the way I did that was by instigating the eco crew, right? I like the idea of a crew rather than a green committee. Lots of schools have green committees. I had a green committee before, but committees talk, right? Whereas a crew, you know, they get their hands dirty. And I like that idea of a crew. Also this, you know, metaphor of being on a ship, right? And sharing this planet all together, right? We're all an eco crew. We're all in it together. We're trying to get stuff sorted. What you see this picture here is 4 members of the eco crew. Picture's not very clear, but these are the t-shirts of organic cotton that they sourced themselves and designed themselves. And this is a big event. You see a lot of people in the background. This is our kermesse, which is something that happens once a year. Not going to happen this year because of the COVID, right? But there's thousands of people that come on campus. And before we started this, people would use single-use plastics for their cups, for bottles, for cutlery, for plates. And the amount of waste was staggering. And what we said is that if we want to have a good time, we want to do so responsibly. So we want to make sure that everything we use, right, can either be in some way easily biodegraded, or we can avoid it altogether, right? So we've introduced reusable cups, right? I will show you a bit more about that. And we've looked into using things that are biodegradable, right? That's not a perfect system, but it's one step from where we were before, right? Here are some ideas what the Ecru really embodies. So this is a group of students that comes to me one lunchtime a week, and they basically design and develop their own project. So what you see here, right, this is really what we did. This is a screenshot of what the students developed this school year, right? So this will be last year before we closed down because of COVID, right? And there's a number of things that they come forward with. And the idea is that the students develop the skills to actually set them up and to make it happen, right? This is an example of what we actually made happen in our cafeteria. So we have 1,000 students in our secondary school and about 600 students in the primary school. And a lot of them, this is the way it works here in Switzerland, is people have a lunch on a daily basis. And there was a lot of plastics, right, being used in that. We identified every item that Nova A, our caterer, was using. And in our procurement, we removed every one of them. We got rid of our vending machines, we got rid of our plastic bottles, and basically a huge part lies at the level of procurement. How could I do that? How could we do that? Because we got our leadership on board. We identified that this was no longer in line with our mission, right? If we want a better world, plastic is not part of it. So we want to move forward towards a new normal. So we have to be really brutal and sort of identify the things. And really what you do is that you sacrifice convenience for what is right, right? And this is difficult, but, and I know that quite a few of our parents had a harder time to begin with. They couldn't really argue, but they did. It was quite interesting actually to have those conversations. I mean, we swayed them in the end, but you have to have difficult conversations and you have to sort of be willing to do that. So here I want to show how the students are really involved. So one of the major parts, apart from the cafeteria, where students eat every day, where there were lots of plastics. Another major source of single-use plastic, because that's what I'm talking about, was during our school events. This is a primary picnic. This was, I believe, October last year. And what we've installed, what we've put in place are called eco points, right? Students, you see 2 of my students here, right, are busy sort of collecting the things that are coming back. And what you see here are plates that are biodegradable, cups that are reusable, and in the background you see a little bit of waste that is still being used. So this looks nice and quaint because we still haven't fully sort of developed our pointers and everything that it goes. It's still work in progress, but it seems to work on the day. One of the things that's really important we found is that we have to block all I mean, we're a school, we're a campus, so we have these waste bins that are there. If we don't block them off, people will use them, right? People are slippery. They will sort of dump their waste wherever they can. So we had to be playful and putting boxes and smiley faces, because I think it has to be a positive message so people to bring it there. So here you see the same process a bit later in the day, right? So you see the different parts of it. You see the food waste, you see the dirty cups, right? The plastics, which are not plastics, right? And everything being separated in a neat way. And the part of it that you don't see is the communication which it actually gives to the parents, because it's an awareness on the part of the different generations and also grandparents that come, who find this very difficult. I mean, I had a grandfather who came in and he said, "Could you open the bin for me?" And he came with his platter. I said, "Why would I do that?" "Because I want to throw this away." He said, "No, this is not how it works here." He insisted 3 times. I'd have to send him around. "No, you take it to these nice girls there, and they will help you separate the waste." And we do it like that. And he had a really hard time. So we have to be aware that we are educating on the spot, right? We found some other solutions, like we used to sell plastic water bottles. We have water container now where people can take their own water, right? Those are the green things on the left, right? Where people can take their own cups. We're no longer using things there. Is it perfect? No, it's not, right? Here is sort of a look in what we still need to work on. We still buy meats. This was a picnic where there was a barbecue, where there's buns, where there's meat, and that comes in containers and packages, right? That is still there. So there's still pushback to where we buy our things, right? These are some of the containers that we use, right? I still don't understand why we need a plastic bin bag for the aluminum cans. So I took them out, right? They're here in the picture, right? But the education also goes to the people who sort of run the cleaning up on the spot. So we did achieve the Green Flag Award, right, because of our efforts, right? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the eco schools, but they're quite interesting. They're really looking at the process rather than the final result, which I think is encouraging. And I want to say something about plastic-free campus. It's not thank you for giving me the credit, but I didn't actually do that. I worked together with the alumna who worked for the Gallifrey Foundation, and she took note of all the steps in our journey, and that has been compiled in this website, which is free, which is out there, which can be used by, I think, mainly secondary and primary, but also by universities. It's a modular approach, which is really aimed to encourage and empower young people to do this, right? What it features is a whole lot of things, right, to get rid of plastics and to recognize that plastics should not be part of our future and therefore should not be part of our present, right? It's really that simple, right? And here you see me in front of a group of young students, right? This is the sort of format where we are aware that we are creating a different world, right? Next to me in this picture is Alexis, right, who's somewhat the muse of this whole process. She's currently at Oxford. She's an alumna of our school, and she's currently at Oxford with a small group of scholars, and she's taking her exams, and she's doing her MBA. And I think she's has bigger plans yet to take things forward. These are the people behind the plastic-free campus. Right? This is the logo of our school. With her deepness. And these are some of the resources that you can find on the website, which are about information. And I think they're really important, right? If you talk as an educator and you talk about knowledge that young people should have about the world, I think they should have knowledge about plastics. I think they should know, right? I think they should really be aware of how they consume and what the impact is around the world, right? Ecological knowledge or earth studies, however you want to call it, right? There's chemistry involved, there's consuming involved, right? There's a lot of things, and they have resources that are quite dense. I mean, they are not dumbed down in any way, but they're nicely comprised and available to people. And I think it's really important for school communities to realize that they are part of the solution, right? For me, the big thing is that what I realized as we went through it, sorry, I'll go back to this one, right, is that we were a community that the people in the cafeteria who delivered the lunches, the leadership, the cleaning people, right? We have a cleaning staff. We are a Swiss school. We're quite privileged in that way. How my colleagues and the students and the parents, all the different stakeholders were in this together, and everybody saw their part of it, right? Information and understanding of how we do things and how we can do it differently is really important. It's a lived experience, right? This is a resource that is for the younger students. If there's people in the audience who work with that, you can find those easy information, again, for young people to know. For me, this links to the idea where young people find their purpose, right? That you can see where are we really, not just how you live your life today, but also where you find your profession, your purpose of what it is that you want to do as a volunteer or as a professional, right? And something I'm fond of saying is that generally, right, the fun stuff is outside the comfort zone. And I'm very proud to say that when I started this, I was well in my 40s and I went out of my comfort zone, and it's been the most rewarding thing to ever do. So it is not easy, but it's fascinating and it's necessary. So I read that there were some concerns about people. How do we get started? Don't worry about it. Just get started, right? Create a community. Be sure that what you're doing is the right thing. Align it with your mission. Find the people who are willing to do it, and then go out and convince others, right? Be convincing, be persuasive, and smile a lot. I think that's really important, because ultimately, you know, this is how we do it. I'm not going to share the story with you because I think I'm running out of time, right? Tiara, am I right? Am I sort of where I need to be at this moment?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to end here. Thank you very much, and I'll stop sharing my screen if I can find how to do that.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks
I'll
for
stop there. Yeah.
thanks for staying late for us, and thank you for sharing your journey and being such an inspired educator for us and sharing us tips on how to approach our work. So
My pleasure.
if you want to explore the modules that Jan mentioned, you can go ahead to plasticfreecampus.org. And also for Young's plethora of manuals, you can go to postlandflow.org as well for that. So we will open the next 5 minutes for questions. You can chat them at the box, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask the questions face to face. If you're feeling shy, you can chat. If not, you can unmute yourself.
If I can just add something, that's okay.
Sure.
I think it's really interesting in today's world that we. I mean, I'm really encouraged. I mean, last week Tiara invited me to be in the Philippines. This week I'm in the U.S. So I really feel that we're part of a global community, and that we're forging our way forward. And I think it's really fascinating to see how we share so many parts of the solution and how we have to build local communities, right, that connect globally. And I think in that way, we can really be an example to so many other parts of the crises that we're sort of living today, right? And thank you, Young, for your presentation. I thought it was really awesome. And the things you've suggested, I'm so encouraged, you know, by what's going on. And I will check out your website and the resources that you have there. I think they're really awesome. And I really hope that people will check out the Plastic Free Campus as well, because there are free resources, and please share it with others. I think it's important that we have the courage to go out of our comfort zones and try stuff, right? This is our planet. Let's own it. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan. So I think we don't have questions. It's been around 2 minutes. Everyone might be feeling shy for today. But yeah, I agree. It's very nice to be part of such a global community that recognizes all these problems and all the solutions, and we're all working together progressively to share tips with everyone and to approach this at a global perspective. So because of the internet, we are fortunate to experience that. And we are also fortunate to be able to hear from the US and from Switzerland at this time. And we have participants from all around the world today. So I'll be wrapping up the session for now. But if you do have questions for speakers or follow-up questions, you have their contact from their presentation. You can contact Jan, I guess, from plasticfreecampus.org. And you can contact me as well at tiara@breakfreefromplastic.org. So I hope that was helpful to everyone. And by the way, this again, this presentation is recorded and will be uploaded at the Break Free from Plastic Free Campuses YouTube for your reference. So thank you again, Yang and Jan, for being with us today. Have a good night, Jan, and have a good evening, Young. I hope everyone else has a good day. So yeah, thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Tiara. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.